All right. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Coach P's Perspective. Today, I have an incredible guest with us. This is Coach Nick Mitchell. He is the head wrestling coach at Grandview University, and anybody in the wrestling world knows that this program is legit. So, Coach has came in, built this thing from the ground up. They've won tons of national titles. I'll go through just, quick little bio here, and this is only partial because we could go on for days, but at Grandview, Coach Mitchell has won 8 national championships, 8 dual national champions. Oh, 9 now.
Yeah.
9 national championships. Four-time Coach of the Year. Is that right, or did you win a 5th this past year?
That I'm not sure. I think 4 sounds about right.
Yeah. 4-time, and this is national coach. Yeah, and this is national Coach of the Year, 5-time NAIA Coach of the Year. Again, the list goes on and on. Coach, you have built an incredible program, and I had the honor of interviewing another phenomenal coach just a couple days ago, your college coach, Coach Miller, who won 10 national titles, and you are right on his heels now at 9. So thanks for being on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me here. It's fun.
Yes, sir. So, all right, we'll jump right into questions. And I have a lot, man, because one of the beautiful things about running this podcast is I interview a lot of high performers and get to kind of learn their secrets. So for me, selfishly, I get a lot of free coaching this way. And as a wrestling coach, I want to pick the brain of another great wrestling coach. So let's just start with your background so everybody knows that. Like, where did you grow up? When did you get into the sport of wrestling? And did you play other sports?
Yeah, so I'm an Iowa guy. I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa for the most part. My family is, I would say, like, we're a wrestling family in that we had people that wrestled. Our family really likes wrestling, but not a wrestling family that had a bunch of success, just people who knew of the sport, liked the sport. And so for me, I was just drawn to it early. I was just one of those like stereotypical, hyper aggressive little kids, and really liked the sport right away. So grew up wrestling and did that all the way through elementary school and grade school. And I played every sport. I wrestled, I played baseball, I played football, I ran track. And, looking back, I'm glad I did all those things. I didn't zero in on wrestling too early. Really wasn't until high school, where each year I kind of would maybe drop a sport. Football, I was a 103 pounder as a freshman and sophomore. So I was definitely not going to be a real successful football player. So kind of dropped football. Baseball started interfering with like freestyle season. And so I didn't play baseball in high school, and then you get down to track and I was too slow to sprint and too short to run long distance. And so, that was the last thing that got dropped. So I did that. And then I actually wrestled at Wartburg College. So I wrestled for Coach Miller, who you just talked about. I was there, graduated from Wartburg in 2000. And while I was there, we won a national title as a team. My junior year, we were second in the country the other 3 years. And then I finished third, second, and third when I was at Wartburg. And then I was fortunate enough to stick around, and I was an assistant coach there for 8 years after I graduated. And that eventually led to the spot at Grandview, and everything else has been kind of history since then.
Nice. Yeah. So I love hearing the backstories, and my backstory is very similar as far as playing sports forever and kind of dropping some along the way. And, but I love hearing that, right? Because we're in a period of time where a lot of parents, want to know, like, hey, should I have my kid specialize or shouldn't he specialize? Should he be in multiple sports? And kids have that same dilemma going on. And it's amazing how many high-level coaches or athletes I talk to who did play other sports, right? Maybe not all the way through, but they played other sports. And usually they say it added to their athletic ability and just their overall experience.
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing is as parents, I was just telling you before we got on here that I have 2 girls that are 9 and 6, and, they're just kind of starting to get interested in sports. And as a parent, a lot of times you look at their success or their failure and you personalize it. And it's like shines a light on your own insecurity, And so if your kid is playing softball and they go up and strike out, you're like, oh man, I'm a terrible dad because my girl didn't hit the ball, And I think that's what happens a lot of times is parents start, they get insecure about it and worry about the failure too early. And really it's just about for me, my girls do Parks and Rec. It's way laid back. They play a lot of sports, and I just want them to enjoy it and then decide when on their own terms if they're going to pursue sports and if they really, it's something they're into. And maybe it's easier because I don't have a boy, and maybe I'd be really pushing him into wrestling. Who knows? I mean, I talk, maybe I can be like more level-headed about it now compared to having girls, because my girls, I don't see them getting into wrestling. They're not real aggressive. It's not in their nature right now. But again, that might change because they're around it a lot. So for me, it's just about giving them some opportunity, be around it, and then let them kind of choose what path they're going to go down.
Absolutely. That's exactly what my wife and I have both decided to do. So wrestling for Coach Miller. I mean, like I said, he's a legend. Anyone who knows him, and what I'm going to do is typically in a week, I put out like an interview podcast and a solo podcast, but I'm going to put you guys both out in the same week. All right. So we had the coach, and then we had the coaching tree, and they're two of the best coaches in the nation. But, Coach Miller is a fire plug, man. Like when you talk to that guy, you want to go work out immediately after. So what was it like wrestling for him? And then what are some of the things that you learned from him that you utilize on a daily basis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wrestling for him. It was exactly what I was looking for in a coach. I was probably your typical high school kid that thought it was all about wrestling Division I, and that was kind of the route I was looking. And then I just wasn't getting a ton of attention. And in high school, I was like third, fourth, and third. So it wasn't like I was any kind of like top recruit by any means, but I didn't maybe understand that at the time. And when I visited Wartburg College, where Coach Miller was the coach at the time, I was like, man, this is like, I don't care. He was Division III, and I was pumped about it. Just like you said, I was sold on him more than anything, and just his mentality and his energy. And really that's what it was all through my college career was he's demanding, but to me in a positive way. I mean, he expected a lot. He wasn't okay with mediocrity. He wasn't okay with an average mindset. It was going to be, it was really about getting the most out of yourself, and so it was a great experience. And like I said, that where I probably learned the most really was having the opportunity to keep coaching with him for the 8 years following that. So really I was around him for 12 straight years. And you think about how much you get out of your college experience, if you're with the right people and around the right coaches. And I got triple that amount of time being with Coach Miller. And it's had an impact on every part of my life. And I tell people that really Coach Miller has had as much impact on my life probably as my own parents. I had so much time with him. And, as an athlete, the standard for him was you go out and fight. We kept it simple. It's just you go out and that's how you judge success. It's not based on winning and losing. It's did you go as hard as you could? Did you go out and fight? And if you did, then, even if you lose, you're probably not going to be happy, but you can be satisfied in the fact that like, all right, man, I went as hard as I could. I fought. I just got to get better and beat that guy next time. But if you win a match and you don't feel like you fought and it wasn't as hard as you could go, you shouldn't be happy about it just because you scored more points than the other guy. That's not good enough. And that's something that I've totally carried with me into my coaching because I believe in it 100%. And of course, there's, 10,000 other things that I've taken from him, that I've stolen from him, and that I've tweaked and tried to make my own too. So it's, I can't imagine a better situation than what I had. And I tell people a lot too, it's at that point, like I said, I graduated in 2000. So during that time, that was when more teams were being cut than added. Wrestling was losing teams instead of adding teams at that point. And so I was coaching there from 2000 to 2008. Well, then around that time, 2006, 2007, 2008, and now, that's when wrestling has taken a turn and really added programs. And for me, it was almost lucky that's the way it worked out, because I wouldn't say it's easy to find a coaching job right now, but it's a lot easier now than it used to be. There's just, Moyer and the guys at the NWCA, they're starting new programs all the time. And their biggest hurdle is finding good coaches that can go and do this. And so if I was a young guy at Wartburg in 2004, maybe I'd only coached there for 4 years. I probably, in today's era, I probably could have found something full-time as a head coach or a part-time or a full-time assistant. And that would have seemed great at the time, but I probably wasn't as ready for it as I would have been when I finally took that step in 2008. So I say that a lot, where on one hand, I got lucky because I didn't have some of the same opportunity, and some of it was smart. I turned away from a couple maybe ideas or a couple places I could have gone to, just because I knew I was in such a great situation with Coach Miller at the time.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, my dad's a Hall of Fame coach from Oklahoma, so I had a great coach growing up, but ended up wrestling at 3 different colleges. But my second one was I transferred to a JUCO, and my JUCO coach was one of the best coaches I've ever had in my life, Coach Thompson at Labette, and that's when Labette was a powerhouse. And man, I wish I could have been with that guy for 4 years.
Right.
I wish I could have been with him for 8 or 12, because the impact he has made on my life is, just like you said, it's that strong, almost like the same impact as my parents have made. A lot of the things I do as a coach, I've taken from him. So I fully understand that. And knowing Coach Miller just a little bit, I've had the blessing of being around him with some different leadership trainings and things like that. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better mentor. And then, of course, you've taken and utilized all that stuff to the highest level. So let's use that in transition. How did you decide to take that leap and to jump in and to take over at Grandview? And then tell me about the growth that you've had.
Yeah. So again, I got pretty lucky with that position at Grandview. I mean, I'm from Des Moines, and when I was coaching at Warburg, that's Northeast Iowa, smaller town in Waverly. And so Grandview started football the same year we started wrestling, but they hired the football coach a year in advance to give them more time to recruit since they have such a bigger team. And the head football coach they hired was Mike Woodley, who is actually good friends with Coach Miller. And so I heard about the wrestling position at Grandview before they even announced they were going to start wrestling. And so I had a little bit of a jump on it. And of course, being in Des Moines, for me, that was an attraction since I was from that area originally. And so I actually emailed our athletic director, Troy Plummer, and just said, hey, man, I'm interested if this comes to fruition. And so I had a little bit of a jump on it. And, the whole process, it's one of those things where sometimes things just, again, you get lucky, it falls into place. I don't know what it was. I mean, I probably wasn't the most qualified guy that interviewed or that applied for the job. I got in for an interview, and it was probably, I know Coach Miller called the athletic director and said good things, and that probably helped. And so just get my foot in the door with that connection, which we all know is like such a lesson you learn along the way about making connections and all about who that's one of those things. And so I was lucky enough to get in and did an interview and had me come back for the second interview and got the position. And man, if it's such a process, getting something like that started, starting a new program. You're talking about just literally starting from scratch. I mean, when I interviewed, the wrestling room was being built. So when I first got there, our preseason stuff, we didn't have a room. We were going to some high school off campus. I got hired in March, and you think about, we're going to start a season the next year. And there's, by March, most kids have decided where they're going. At least the good ones have, so you go out and you just hustle and you start recruiting. And, I didn't get a chance to be super picky on the guys I recruited. And I went out and got like 26 guys that year. But I got some guys that really laid the groundwork for our program, that believed in it and stuck with it. And those guys I'm still really indebted to, because they took a chance on me and took a chance on Grandview. And, some of those guys that came that first year that stuck with it, that'll always be a part of it. Those are the guys that really laid the foundation. So, there's so much to it. Like I said, with the wrestling room, my office was it was like an old coach's locker room. So it was like concrete walls. There was like a shower in there. So if I was trying to call recruits, it sounded like I was in a bathroom, because I basically was. So I'd have to go out and walk around campus and just talk to kids, and people would always see me out walking around on my cell phone around campus. We didn't have a coach's locker room. A coach's locker room was it's a bathroom. So it's like you go into this bathroom that they have on campus. on the main floor of the wellness center, and there's like a urinal and then 2 stalls. And then the one stall, if you go around the corner, there's a little shower in there. And so that year we had me and like 3 other guys that were like part-time coaches, and people would come in and use the bathroom, in the public bathroom, and we'd be like standing around in our towels, and like, what is going on in here? So it was just, when you fast forward to our resources and the things we have now, I think a lot of times people are like, oh man, Grandview, those guys, they have it so easy. They've got all these extra resources, and we do now, but it was all stuff that we had to work for over the years. We fundraised for, we recruited, it's just getting the right people in place and trying to get every cog in the machine going. So we came a long ways from those early days for sure.
Yeah. And that's good to hear, because once you've hit success, and people have different versions of success, but winning national titles is success. Yeah. Once you've hit success, people often look, and it's almost like the overnight success, right? They only see that. So like you said, like, oh, well, it's not fair. They have all these resources. They didn't see what went into it. They didn't see behind the scenes. They didn't see you out cutting the grass in the backyard and making it look immaculate. Right. They all those things.
Yeah, for sure. That is a big thing with us, because we won the national title the 4th year of the program. And I know, like, on the outside looking in, I know that is fast, but it didn't seem fast to us. Like we the 3rd year of the program, we finished 5th in the country that year, and we were like severely disappointed that year. Like, I was not happy with finishing 5th. And that's part of why we were successful, is because we weren't okay with like walking away and being like, oh, we're doing pretty well for a young team. We just decided not to make excuses, we just weren't going to use that phrase. Like, we're doing okay for a young team. We were this for a young team. We're this for a young team. It just, that's not, to me, that's just a crutch, and it's something to fall back on when you come up short and be like, oh man, we're still young. And so we just, same thing, you look at like our wrestling facility, like right now we're in a standalone facility. We have 4 mats. They're each 45 by 45. There's space around the outside. We've got bleachers, we've got bikes. We've got like one of the best facilities in the country, probably any division. But at the same time, we've been in there for I think 5 years now. And so the first 4 titles we won, we were in a room that was like a mat and a half. And so at that point, we were crashing against the walls and pushing each other over groups. But that was a good thing too. It made us tougher. And so it's just how you approach it. It's just what your mindset's going to be. And, but at that point, then when we grew, we were doing 2 practices a day. Sometimes I had to go split practice. And so we'd have a group coming in at 3:00 and they'd go till like 4:30, and then a group from 4:30 to 6. And which was okay for the guys that were training, but for the coaching staff, man, that's like two practices back to back. You got to get up, like you got to get yourself up every day for practice and be high energy, but to do it back to back, man, you got to be tough. And so that was part of it for us. But again, we're like, hey, we're not going to make excuses. This is just what it is. And we put ourselves in this position, and now let's move forward. And I see that a lot with young coaches, or not even young, just coaches that are at places where everybody has challenges. I think the thing that people forget, like, again, you can look at our program or other programs and be like, man, they have so many better things going for them. But we have challenges. We had a lot more challenges that we had to overcome, but we just never acted like, we didn't whine about it. We didn't complain about it. It was, my athletic director has a good saying. He's like, bring me solutions, not problems, and that's my thing, is if I'm going to go to him, here's the problem, but here's what I think we could do. Here's my idea to fix it. Not just going to complain, hey man, our room's not big enough. This sucks. Well then what? He already knows that. It's not, what's the solution? How are we going to fix it for him? Make his job easier. Yeah.
It's amazing how perspective matters, gratitude matters, and high level coaches are able to flip things sometimes. And as you were talking, you had this thought process, because the first school I wrestled at was in Missouri Valley. We won a national title when I was there at Valley. And we had, and I'm fortunate, when I came in, we had new facilities. We had new wrestling room, weight room. And, but then I transferred to Labette, and I think 8 out of our 10 starters were like, we were from Oklahoma. So a lot of Oklahoma kids, and that's where I'm from, but we're wrestling at Labette, right? Well, I didn't really know much about Labette. And so I had already like decided to come back home and transfer and commit. And I walk into Labette, and Coach Thompson's like, hey, go to the back of the gym and the wrestling room, and I'll come back in a minute. And my dad and I walk back there, and there's 2 mats laying on the floor with a curtain that separates it from the gym. And I'm like, this is a wrestling room? And he walks back and he's talking, and we walk in the weight room. There's like 1 bench, there's one squat rack and some random dumbbells. In my mind, I'm like, what did I do? I just, yeah. And but Coach Thompson flipped the script. I mean, he just told us like, hey, we're like Rocky Balboa. Like, we're just tough in here, and we don't need all this fancy stuff. And you believed it, right? You got a great coach. We, like you said, we wrestle on top of each other, and you just believed it. So great coaches do that.
It's funny you say it too, because I was going to tell you too. We're actually this year we already talked about like at some point, because now our women's team uses our old facility because this is their second year. But I want to trade with them for a day or two this year and have our guys be in there. One, just to like feel that like, hey man, this is intense. This is like we're on top of each other. We're scrapping in here, but also just so they have the appreciation for what we have now and understanding it hasn't always been like that.
Absolutely. Great idea. Love that. Great idea. So, all right. Now, in building this program, what are some of the pillars or some of the keys that you guys have in place that have allowed it to become a championship program? What are some of the main structures of what you guys do?
Yeah. So, I mean, number one is, you always hear it. You got to get the right people around you, and so the third year of the program, that's when I was able to hire a full-time assistant. And so I brought in Coach Reedy that year. And I've known Paul Reedy for a long time. Somebody that I trusted. I knew he was a worker. It was just kind of a no-brainer for me. And so he came in and took over as the head assistant. And now he's our associate head coach. And that was a huge, huge difference maker. Just having another person that was like-minded as far as what the expectation was going to be, but also just like an extreme work ethic too, and you hear about like books like Chop Wood, Carry Water. That guy, the book's about him basically. Like he's that guy. Like he wash the mats. He'll take the garbage out. He would paint the school. I mean, he would do anything. Like he'll pick up garbage in the parking lot. He's that guy, and he does that. And then other people see it and they work harder because of it. He brings my work level up too, so that's a huge key, is having somebody like that in the program. And then the rest is, I would say the keys were that, getting great coaches in, getting really good people around me. And then just building a philosophy that is simple, that we can always go back to, that we believe in as a program. That's just, that everybody knows this is what the expectation is, that's been a huge part of it. And then when I talk about expectation, I think some people they let themselves off the hook too easy, when it comes to what their goal is for the program. I just think, teams that aren't winning, sometimes they'll step back and be like, well, yeah, but that's not as important to us because we're more worried about raising good guys on the team, good future men, whatever. And why can't you do both? Why? That's an excuse to me. Like, cause I feel like we're doing that. I mean, that's what our program, that is the main thing, but those things to me they go hand in hand. Those are directly tied to each other. Now, if you're winning and you're not putting out good people and good future men into the workplace and future dads and future husbands, then you're doing it wrong. But I've never really seen very many programs that are successful for a long period of time that don't have a really successful culture too. You can be good for a year, maybe 2 years, that we all know of high school and college programs that have been successful for a short amount of time, but maybe we're doing it the wrong way. Those teams are really never successful for the long haul, for a long, and it's what's really long, 2-3 years really isn't that long. That's a maybe one recruiting cycle where you recruited some guys, but if you can put together 1, 2, 3, 4 year cycles, that's a long period of time. And, that's where culture really comes into it, because it's, these guys are having an impact on the next guys and those guys are having an impact on the next guys. And it just becomes the expectation of the program. So it comes down to it. People ask like, what's the secret? Well, there's really 2 things and they're not secrets, but the one is, we talk championship lifestyle and we'll probably talk about some of that, and what that means to us, but that's our philosophy. That's what we're built around. But the other secret is the coaching staff, you have to take care of everything, every single thing. That's your job. You have to make sure guys are on top of things academically. You have to make sure they're doing things right socially. You have to make sure that that they're signed up for the right classes, that they're not missing class, that you're training them right. You got to know what kind of lifting they're doing. You got to know nutrition. You have to be an expert or find an expert in every area. And I've been around too many coaches that are like, man, I'm not dealing with academics. Like, that's not my job. Well, to me, it is. If you want to be successful for the long haul, if my best guy on the team is not very strong academically, I better be on top of him making sure that he's on top of things academically, or else he's not going to score any points for me second semester if he's ineligible. So, it's not just like helping, making sure he gets to the right places, but teaching him the lessons on maybe why are you coming up short academically? What is it? It's not just because you think you're dumb. It's probably because you're not organized. You don't have a system. You haven't developed a good routine. These are things that you need to talk about every day and get your team to understand. And then they find out, like, too many guys that come in and they're like, man, I'm just not good at school. I'm like, well, there's step one. Like, if I heard you say, you would never say I'm not very good at wrestling. I'm in total negative self-talk. So you kind of start saying, like, I'm not very good at school. Like, don't ever tell me that again. Like, start telling me I love school. Just see what happens if you start saying, man, I love school. I'm going to sit in the front row. I'm going to dominate this class, man. I'm winning this class today. You're going to feel different about it. You're going to think different. You're going to put yourself and what you can do on another level. And so it's those things. And then from there, it's okay. You don't think you're dumb anymore. You stop saying you're not good at something. You think you're capable. You have the ability to do it. And now let's help you figure out, okay, now what's your routine? What's your system? What's your planning method? How do you do these things? A lot of kids, they don't have that, and you think you go from high school that's really structured. You've got almost most of your day planned for you. And then you go to college and you're only in class for 2 hours a day. What do you do with that extra time? You better think about that. You better talk about it. You better plan for it, or else it's going to be take a nap, play video games, and drink beer. I don't know, whatever you got time for. So that, to me, that's the thing, is we have to be on top of everything. We can't let little things slip through the cracks. It has to be, again, if you want to be successful for a long time, all of it, every part of the wrestling, every part of the stuff outside of wrestling, you got to deal with it. So it's hard. That's what it comes down to. It's really hard. But you have to be willing to do that, because most people look at coaching, especially young guys or guys that are coming straight out of college, and they're like, man, I want your job. Just coach wrestling? That sounds awesome. I'm like, all right, come on, man, check it out and see what it's really like. And then our grad assistants and our young coaches are like, oh, dang, I didn't think about this and this. And I'm like, yeah, that's what makes it tough. That's what separates great programs from everybody else.
Yeah, there's so much more to coaching than people realize. And I know, just one example, my dad told me right when I got done wrestling in college and I went into coaching, going to my first tournaments coach, and my dad said, you're going to be more tired tomorrow than you were whenever you were a wrestler. I'm like, what? Like, no way. And on Sunday, and I don't even drink. On Sunday, I feel like I had a hangover. I'm just like,
right.
Right? Because you
wrestle every match. Right.
Exactly. You wrestle every match, right? Adrenaline highs and lows all day long. And,
sure.
But yeah, you got to be a dad and counselor and teacher, and there's so many things you got to do. And then your organization as a coach has to be absolutely on par. And I love that, you talked about your assistants and letting your assistants kind of be superstars, right? You let them do their job and shine in their roles whenever you do that, but you guys are all heading the same direction. Right. Do you have on your team, because you guys have a great culture, and I know, like Coach Miller, one of his sayings is do it anyway. Do you guys have any sayings like that kind of encompass your culture?
Yeah. So, and do it anyway. We talk about that. Something we talk kind of, the standard for us is do it anyway. That's an easy one. It's just, like Coach Miller always told us. And so that thing, do it anyway, that literally changed my life. I heard that in college, and I didn't hear it till my sophomore year, and I'm sure he'd said it before, but that instantly I heard it one day. And literally, for some reason that day it hit me, and I've been different ever since that day. I was way good at letting myself off the hook when it came to school. It was just enough to get by. keep my parents off my back, keep Coach Miller off my back. And then my sophomore year, I heard it, and it was just like, I got to the point where not feeling like doing something became my motivation to do it. It was is instead of everybody else, where everyone else, you don't feel like doing something, you typically don't do it. For me, it was, I don't feel like doing this. It was like more motivation to boom, I got to go now, and I can literally remember sitting on my couch. I lived off campus my sophomore year, and I sat down, and it was 10 a.m. and I said I was going to go get an extra workout at 10 a.m. and I sat on the couch. I was like, man, I don't feel like it. And it was immediately like, boom, I'm up, I'm going, because I don't feel like it, and so it's just, it hit me, and it still sticks with me. And it's still something that I live, and something I talk to my guys about all the time. So do it anyway. We talk about doing more. I mean, it's such a simple concept, like just do more than everybody else. Successful people, they put more work in, they put more time in, they do more of the right things, and they also sacrifice more. That's the other thing, is it's not just what you're willing to do, but what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to sacrifice that others won't? And especially in college, man, guys, so many athletes, they want to play this game. They play this, like this routine of, I want to have a great social life. I want to like live it up, live a college lifestyle, maybe party, maybe do this as much as I can and still win. And that's a dangerous game, because you don't know, like there's no guarantee. There's no like secret number where I can say, hey, if you work out 200 times, or if you skip 10 parties, you're guaranteed to win, because that number is different for everybody. And because you don't know, guys will risk it. Like, well, I don't feel like working out today, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to, it's only September, so I'm going to have a few beers this weekend. And then it becomes, well, it's October. And then it's Halloween, it's going to be my last time. And they keep, these guys, they play this game with themselves. And the successful people, they just do, they sacrifice more, they put more time in, and so it's understanding, like, you just do more than everybody else. And then you keep doing more, and you keep doing more. And pretty soon then you become more, and then you'll get more. And so it's not, guys, they want to get more immediately, but you got to do more first. And then the more you do, then you become it, and it's that whole thing. Like, guys that win championships, they're already champions. You know what I mean? Like, they already live like it. They've already done what it takes to earn it. So when they win, it's just affirming what everybody already knows.
Yeah.
You think of Tom Brady, like, the guy wins titles all the time. Well, is anybody really surprised when he wins? Probably, not really. I mean, they might not like it. It's easy to hate the team that wins all the time, but he lives it. He's a champ already. And so you just know what's going to happen based on how he lives and what he does and how he carries himself. So it's the same thing. And college is tricky with that, man, because what becomes normal in college is not normal in the real world. You're in this weird bubble where it's so, people are more alcohol, more drugs, more, taking naps, more, all these weird things that, like, you can't do in the real world. Like, I give my guys a hard time about napping. I'm like, can you guys imagine if I just took a nap every day at 11 o'clock? And that's not normal. Like, you can't do that. That's not an adult lifestyle. That's not, and so you can't live like a college guy. You got to live like a professional. You got to live a bit higher than everybody else. So do more. And then the last part, it's just like, do everything with purpose and passion. Your purpose is, that you're coming in. If me and you go to practice for 2 hours together, you might get a lot more out of that 2 hours than I get. Just because we're putting the same amount of time in doesn't mean we're getting the same amount of feedback from that practice. We're not getting we're not putting the same amount of work in. If you have purpose, you come in like, man, you're there with some passion, you're excited about it. It makes a big difference. And so it's attacking it. And it means, like, you give everything purpose. Like, you eat with a purpose. You don't eat just because you're hungry. You eat because it's going to fuel your next workout. You eat because it's going to help you recover from your last workout. You eat because you're going to sleep better. You're going to eat because you need to get a certain amount of protein in. It's a different way of thinking. You go to class with a purpose. You go because whether you like it or not, your practice and discipline, it's making you tougher. And that's going to carry over into your wrestling. And that's going to make you tougher because it's your discipline is going to become easier. So having purpose and, like, just legit passion about coming in and putting work in, it's another separator, because a lot of guys put the same amount of time in, but what the kind of time they put in isn't the same. So, and then really ultimately all that is for us it's championship lifestyle, you know, and I said that earlier, but that's what that is. It just means like, we want our guys to come in with a mindset that whatever their wrestling mindset is, as much as they love to win and they hate to lose, they have to take that into every single aspect of their lives. And so in your family life, your social life, your academic life, your faith life, whatever's important to you, make a decision like, I'm trying to be the best at this. I'm trying to win at this all the time. And that's probably one of those things that when guys first come to campus, if they don't already live like that, the real motivation is they're going to find out when they do that, they become better wrestlers. That's the first motivation. It's just, hey, do this all the time, because I tell them, trust me, you'll get better at wrestling when you think like this all the time. So that's their initial motivation. But then when they find out is in the long run, the real motivation, the real benefit of the whole thing is it's who you become for the rest of your life. It's who you're going to be, you know, and to them right now, they're 22 years old. Being 30, you know, or 35 seems like years and years away, you know, like a lifetime away, but we know it's going to happen like that. And so it's, okay, man, I'm 42 and living that lifestyle, that helps me be a better husband. It makes me a better dad. Like, that's our main goal, you know, and as much as we want to win, we want you to find out what the best version of yourself is. And then it goes back to the wrestling part. The goal isn't just to win. You know, championship lifestyle doesn't mean win. It means find out how good can you be? Like, what's the best look like? What's the best version of our team look like? And, you know, last year we won the national title by like 74, 75 points. Well, what if we would have won by 5 points? Like, we still won, but winning by 5 isn't good if you can win by 75. Yeah. So the whole point is like, it's not just about winning. It's not just about outcomes. It's about finding the best. What's the best version, the most dominant, you know, in every part of your life. So that's what we preach all the time. And that's what we talk about pretty much on a daily basis. And that's always the standard for us.
I love it. And I'm taking notes while you're talking. So I normally go back after podcasts and take some notes, but I suggest to anybody listening, you know, make sure, don't leave great thoughts just up to your brain, because you're going to forget them, right? Whether it's inspiration that comes upon you, put it in your notes on your phone or something, or if you're listening to something, take notes. But say what, for any high school athlete, any college athlete or coach, like, this is like a lexicon, or this is like a short little book of things you got to do to be successful. And there are things that I saw as an athlete that worked, things I see as a coach that worked, and you're just laying them out, and then proof is in the pudding, right? Like you said, it's not just winning. It's like, what's the best version of you? And you can't always control outcomes, but man, if you put in the work and do all these other things, you put yourself in a position to win, you know,
Sure.
and then to be great in life. Now, you know, Coach, you're a high performer. I mean, you were a great wrestler, a great coach. What does your personal daily routine look like? Because most high performers I speak with, like you talked about earlier, organization, right? Most high performers are fairly organized, and they kind of have a daily routine. So what makes you your best version every day?
Yeah. You know, for me, COVID threw it all off, right? Everybody's trying to figure that out right now. And I really do think that was like one of the biggest challenges, is we all have our, you know, hopefully if you're doing things right, you have your routine, you kind of have your system. And then this hit, and all of a sudden everything was turned upside down, you know, and you're like, where do I work out now? How do I work out? How do I, you know, when do I do anything? You know, I'm just hanging out all day. Like, you know, so it got to a point where that the same with us. We had to kind of figure out, you know, what was our daily routine going to look like. So for me, it's, you know, most of my day, I mean, if it was a normal day, I'd take my girls to school. You know, I try to get some time with them in the morning. And so my wife usually gets them ready to go, and we go in the morning. I'll take them to school. Usually have individual drills with guys in the mornings. And then it's just like, for me every day, you know, I'm a guy that has to have like a to-do list, and whatever either it's something I write down, or a lot of times now my email is my to-do list, you know, and I send myself emails a lot, you know, or half my emails are from me, and it's reminders, because I don't know if it's because I'm getting older. I just have too much going at one time. I cannot remember anything if I don't write it down, send myself an email, or put it in my calendar. And so and my wife is like our family CEO. I mean, she's got it organized, and she knows too. Like, she puts everything on my calendar. And sometimes I'm like, stop blowing my calendar up. And she's like, yeah, but you know that you will forget if I don't put it on. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly right. It's true. So it's just, I try to make sure that I've got something, and then you just attack every day on, okay, what's something that I need to get done immediately. And then for me, I always have these like long-term bigger things that we're working on, and if that's usually something to do with fundraising or an event we're going to do, or, there's just, we had a golf outing a while back. And so preparing for that. And now here I am, 3 weeks later, trying to finish up thank you cards. That's like the last on my list every day. I try to get all the stuff I got to get done immediately. Then I got to write these thank yous, and then next thing you know, it's afternoon, it's practice time. So we're, for us, like one thing we try to do is, I have a big coaching staff, and, and so now I have Coach Reedy, who's full-time. We fundraised enough to hire another full-time assistant. So I have Grant Henderson, who's the 2-time national champ for us. That was a huge difference maker for us. He's been with us just over a year now. We have a grad assistant, Eric Clark, who's an All-American for us. And then I have literally like 10 other guys that are like part-time coaches that we just pay out of fundraising, enough that they feel like they can be in and be involved in the program. And so about a half hour before every practice, every day we'll meet in our conference room, the guys that want to come in and give some feedback on what we should do before practice. And we just, all right, what's the plan for today? Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to cover. Here's what we're going to do for live goes. And it's made a big difference, because it used to kind of be just me on my own, just writing that up at, right before 4:00. Sometimes it was just me and Reedy. And then we decided, hey, we've got all these other really good coaches. Let's get some feedback on what they're seeing and what we need to show. And my practice is planned every day. I'm not a guy that I don't plan practices a week in advance. I don't plan them a month in advance. I plan it the day of, and everybody I think is a little bit different. But for me, I really want to know, like, all right, here's what's going on right now. Maybe guys are a little bit banged up, so we're not going to do much live today. Here, I thought we were going to show this for technique, but you know what? I see that our guys are really struggling, beating legs or whatever. We got to spend time in this area, and so we'll come in every day, and every day I've got something that I'm going to talk to them about. There'll be some basic announcements, some get your financial aid paperwork turned in, stuff like that, but something regarding championship lifestyle, something about, how to live your life, how to be better, how to, and I'd say 4 out of 5 days it's me. And then one other day it'll be one of the other coaches or a guy on the team or something that talks. But I think that's probably the most valuable part of our practice every day is our guys that sit in the bleachers, and I've got something for them almost every single day. And some days it lasts 2 minutes, and some days it probably lasts too long, and I talk to them for 15 minutes or whatever. But stuff that I think really has a big impact on our guys. And then practice, and then I make a goal to get home. My goal is to be home before 7:00 at night. So usually that's the latest, and if I can get home by 6:30, that's great. Our practices, we never go more than 2 hours. So 6:30, 7:00 is pretty doable. Spend some time with family, try to get back and make sure that my kids know I exist. So
yeah, absolutely. Now, Coach Miller said, and to back up real quick, I'm with you on the practices. I do the same thing. I mean, I type up all my practice detail, but I do it the day of, so that it makes sense for where we're at, at that point in the season during that week. And anyway, but so Coach Miller says this, and I loved it. And I learned this from him a number of years ago, and it stuck with me and I use it. But he has his 17 steps. So from his office to the wrestling room, 17 steps. And no matter how his day is going, when he gets to the wrestling room, his energy level goes up, and he's now, Coach Miller and ready to walk in and not let, because all of us, right? You have days going back to the do it anyway, but days that you feel good, days you don't feel it, whatever. And that can influence and affect your team in a positive or negative way. So whenever you walk in the room as coach, do you have a Coach Mitchell, like different personality, like, like when you walk in, right? Like, boom, like it's go time. What's your process there? And like, how do you try to approach walking into practice?
Yeah. And that was something that when I was at Warburg, we talked about, and I talked to our guys about too, is, it's like when you change your clothes, you change from your street clothes to your practice clothes. You can change your mindset while you're doing that. Our guys, they have stress from school. They've got girlfriend issues, they got family issues, all this stuff. You change your clothes, you leave that in the locker, you leave your problems in your locker too. and one of my assistant coaches that he actually wrestled at Wartburg and he was with me for the first few years of our program. He was like, man, I didn't just leave it in the locker. He's like, I had to put it in my sock and stick my sock in my shoe and stick my shoe in the bottom and put my clothes on top of it. But it was like his thought process of, this is how I leave those things in the locker. And it's the same thing for us as coaches. And we've got our own issues that we're stressed about and that we're dealing with. And it might be something that's legitimately, a really good guy on the team is injured and you're just hurting for him and you feel bad. And it's like, well, like you said, they're going to feed off me. And so when when I walk in, I just try to make sure, like, as I'm walking in there, I'm bringing my own energy level up, and one thing that I've done the last couple of years is just on a random day, I'll be like, hey man, today's the most important practice of the year. I'll tell our guys, like, you know why? Why? What's so important about today? And I'm like, it's today, man, because it's today. Like, it's the only one we can do anything about. It's the only day we can control. Like, yesterday is gone. Tomorrow is tomorrow. We can't handle anything. We can't control anything about tomorrow right now. It's right now. Like, this is the most important practice of the year. And it's just good. Like, you pick this random day, and it's when the season gets long and it's middle of January, and it's Iowa and it's cold and they haven't seen the daylight in 6 months, whatever. And they're like, and it's that time of day anyway, 4:00. I mean, most guys, like, that's like a tired time of day. You ate lunch and it settles in and you've been studying, and that's when most college kids are taking naps, and so it's like, all right, man, here we go. And so it's just finding little things that I can remind them. And then, I got to take that time before to make sure I know what my message is and make sure that I'm excited about it. And just knowing that, okay, when I was in college, I heard that message of do it anyway. And knowing that one day, like, literally changed my life, I got to get up every day and make sure I know, like, hey man, this might be the one, this might be the message. And it's crazy how every year that's how it's kind of worked. Like, we don't come up with like a theme for our team. I'm not like, all right guys, what's the theme going to be? But I'll say something and for some reason it'll click and the guys, like, they latch onto it. One year it was crush hope, and I was talking about, there was a team that at national duels that they were like telling people that they were going to beat us. They had a plan and all this. And I brought our team together and I was like, listen, man, these guys have hope right now. Like, let's crush that hope. Like, let's make sure they know that the best they can do is maybe get second this year. And so the guys just latched onto it and it was just like crush hope. That's our goal, is like crush everyone's hope. And last year I talked to them just about like being a dog chasing a car, and so, like, in one of the Batman movies, he's talking about, like, I'm just like a dog chasing a car. He's like, I don't even know what I'd do if I got there. And I'm like, just wrestle like that. If people that grow up on a farm, they've seen dogs that just chase cars down the gravel road. Like, the dog doesn't stretch out. The dog doesn't worry about getting tired. The dog's not like, oh, I better pace myself. I don't know how long. The dog just takes off and goes. And so I talked about it. And then last year that just became the thing that guys latched onto. And so to me, that's you just don't know what it's going to be that you say that has a huge impact. And you said earlier, you do so much, that you coach so much the way that you were coached. That's a huge responsibility, and I think I coach a lot of the way I was coached too, but I got to be true to my own personality too. You can't fake it. You can't try to be like someone else. But that means you also have to be aware of your personality defects. And, some guys are overly sarcastic or some guys are overly negative. That's just naturally how they are. You got to pay attention to those things. You got to know yourself really well as a coach, because you can definitely project that onto your team.
Yeah, the authenticity as a coach is huge. Years ago, and I'm thankful for it, I read The Mentor Leader by Tony Dungy. And really it changed me as a coach because, Tony Dungy is this laid back guy. He doesn't cuss, doesn't yell, and yet he wins a Super Bowl, right? He was very authentic, but very different than the rest of the NFL coaches, or most of them. Reading that, because a lot of people do coach the way they're coached, and I think that, but they never think outside of that, right? And so maybe they're a football coach, and their coach was a yeller, so they're yelling all the time, but it's not even their personality,
Right.
Yeah. So you have to take the good things you learn from your coaches, and you're still trying to grow, but be authentically you at the same time. Like I always tell my guys, I'm like, I'm a little Tony Dungy, I'm a little Mike Tyson, right? I'm a little bit of both, and so I'm gonna authentically be that. But then, like you said, also kind of knowing the weaknesses that come with that as well, so you can stray away from those.
For sure. Yep.
Okay, so I know how much time it takes to be a coach, and working with your wrestlers, working with your staff, working with the community, the school, all these type of things. How do you balance that? And you've spoken a little bit about your family, but what are a couple of the tricks or the key things that you try to do to balance being a good coach with being a good husband and father?
Yeah. So, I mean, there are just like little things. Like I said, I try to make sure I'm home by 7 o'clock, and some of that was especially early. Now my girls are 9 and 6. They're easier to take care of. But when a 3-year-old and a newborn, and I told my wife I'd be home at 6:30 and I'd show up at 8 o'clock, she wasn't very happy about it, And so some of that is making sure that I'm clear about expectations of here, or just like, here's probably when I'll be, here's what I'm going to do my best to be home by, so that she knows what to expect. When you're raising a family and you're working as a team, you want to know what you're getting out of your teammate, so trying to communicate clearly on those things. Little things, I saw somebody say once, and it's made a big difference for me, is I try not to walk in the house on my phone. You come in, the girls run up and they want to give you a hug, and you're like, oh, hold on, and it's not a very good start to hanging out with your family. So my wife laughs sometimes, she'll come and look out in the garage and I'll be sitting on my phone in the car, but at least I'm not coming in on that phone. I'm going to turn it off before I walk in. So, and then the other thing is just, that people talk about balance a lot. And the only thing that like, I don't like about that word is sometimes balance can mean like I have to let off one for the other side to even up a little bit. And it just is like, you have to work as hard in those other areas as you do with your, and for some people it might be they work way harder in their family than they do in their career. And I guess if you're okay with that, then that's how you are. But for me, if I'm a great dad and a great husband, but I'm lazy in my job, or if I'm lazy, that's not a championship lifestyle. And I know that'll end up creeping into how I am as a husband and a dad. And so I want to work the same all the time. But that also means, because I'm so driven with my job and as a coach, I have to make sure that when I get home, I'm driven that way too. And so if my oldest daughter needs help on her math homework, then hey man, we got to get tough and get some math homework done. It's not like, oh man, I'm stressed, I'm tired, I don't feel like it. You just got to do it anyway. And it's reading a book at the end of the day, and it's, being nice to your wife, and, and again, it's being, knowing what your personality flaws are too. Obviously that's part of any relationship, is not trying to figure out how you can get the other person to be more of what you want. You got to work on being more of what you need to be for the other person. And that's hard, because as coaches, that's literally what we're doing, is we're trying to coach our guys to be something different, to be something better. But when you come home, that's not how it should be. I'm not trying to, and I fall into that. I make that mistake a lot. And my wife, Rochelle, would be like, hey, stop coaching me, or whatever. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm doing that, so it's tricky. It's because it's who you are. It's your personality. I just naturally like trying to get more out of people and raise expectations, but that can be a little much sometimes with family and kids too.
Yeah, I understand that 100%. So I'm always thankful that my wife and I dated whenever I was a college wrestler, and she was a college softball player. So she understands, and she's also a coach. But yeah, dude, I get that 100%. So, all right, I got one more question for you, Coach.
Yeah.
Put you on the hot seat a little bit. All right. And you get to choose out of these. Okay. I want you to tell me about a hero, a highlight, or a hardship in your life. A hero, a highlight, or a hardship. And then just expound upon it. Like, what did you learn?
Yeah. And I mean, those are a lot of things pop in my head. I mean, easy highlight is when we won our first national dual championship that year, and then we won our first national title that year. It's just knowing, the work we put in. It was like, okay, when we won the duels, I was like, man, we can really do this, and as much as you can like talk yourself into like, oh man, I want this to happen, it's like knowing that it can really happen. That's a really good feeling. But it kind of goes back to what we were talking about too. So I won the national title in 2012 as a team. And then you find out really soon after that it wears off, that good feeling of winning, it only lasts so long. And really that affirmed, what we've been talking about with championship lifestyle for so much, because what really feels good after winning is knowing that, hey, when you go home, you're winning at home too, and you've got a good family, and you're working hard outside of your job, because I think with wrestling, you hear a lot about guys put such a pedestal on the winning part, and then they win, and it's almost like the worst feeling they ever hit, because they're like, man, that didn't make my life better. Like, I've been working so hard for this. I thought it was going to solve all my issues, and it doesn't solve anything. And you hear about a lot of athletes that they reach that goal, and then it's like after college, they don't, okay, now what do I do? You know, how to, and they don't have something that they've been really driven towards. So, and I know someday when we don't win the national title, it's going to suck a lot. I'm going to be really disappointed, but hopefully you can go back to is how I live on a daily basis, and hopefully living that championship lifestyle. And that kind of goes into, you know, the other part, you know, my biggest loss, my biggest heartache. So my sister died, a couple of about a year and a half ago. She was 33. She's my younger sister. It was just, she had a brain aneurysm. It just out of nowhere, she died. And like, there's nothing worse than something like that. You know, anybody that has had loss or is had to grieve knows that you don't really ever get all the way over it. But you also, the thing that keeps you going is knowing that, you still have this daily thing that you do every day, which is, hey, I didn't feel like doing it anyway, but I still did. You know, I didn't feel like a lot of things. You know, you don't feel like doing a lot of things when you're sad and you're down and you're depressed, but you just do it anyway, and you live this championship lifestyle. And I think that really is like what kind of drug me through it. You know, I got my faith and I got my family, and you latch onto that more than ever. And it wasn't when at that point we'd won 8 titles. Those didn't really mean much at that point, you know? And so it's good perspective of, it doesn't mean I think you work any less towards those goals. You still put the work into it, but you put your life into it, and it's how you live. You know, you live in such a way that you have the opportunity to win, and the winning is going to be great, but it's going to wear off. But the way you lived, that's actually the real winning. So it's a trick, man. It's a weird mind game, but it's what it's all about.
I love it, Coach, and you know, I'm taking some of these philosophies and adapting them to what I do, you know, in my personal life and my coaching and things like that. So, hey, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on here. I'm grateful you took the time, and this is again, anybody listening, man, they better be taking notes, because there's a lot of great information here. So, thank you so much, Coach.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Anytime.
Yes, sir. Now, how can people get a hold of you or follow you on social media? What's the best way?
Yeah, pretty much all, you know, I got to do the whole thing. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all of it. I gave up my MySpace account back in the 90s, so that's all gone now. But yeah, any of that, hit me up. You know, you can email me, old school, I guess. Go to Grandview's website and find me. So anyway, man, and I love hearing from coaches. I like talking wrestling. It's probably my favorite thing about what I do now is I love doing stuff like this. You know, this is, to me, it's what I like to talk about, and it's interesting to me. And so yeah, people that have questions, hit me up anytime. It's my favorite thing.
Okay, I'll make sure that I get your social media tags and Grandview's website, your wrestling website, and all that, and put it in the show notes. Again, thank you so much. And for anybody, you know, that wants to get a hold of Coach, make sure you look in the show notes there. May God bless you and shine His face upon you. Until next time, peace.